the SLA challenge quiz. There's 3 items. She gets them all right, she's going to win a prize. I will tell you in a minute what it is. It's not really a date with Walter. And in honor of our special guest, these questions all have to do with Steve Krashen. Are you ready?
Oh, should be easy.
What was the name of Steve's first pet? No, I'm just kidding. Number 1. You ready, Lizette?
I am.
Okay, get close to the microphone so everybody can hear you. We need to record you.
Okay.
Get really close.
Really close.
There you go. There you go. Pretend it's Walter. Pretend you're on a date with Walter. Get close to him. Okay. All right. Which of the following is a construct within Steve Krashen's theory about language acquisition? A. And don't be like Eric and jump the gun. Listen to all responses. Okay. A. N+1. B. The input hypothesis. C. The explicit-implicit distinction. D. None of the above.
Can I call a friend?
First question, she needs a lifeline. You can see if someone in the audience can help you with that.
The input hypothesis.
Oh, there you go. Ding, ding, ding. Okay, hang on a second. Okay, question number 2. Question number 2. Here we go. Which of the following would Steve Krashen probably not say or not agree with? Okay. A. Grammar instruction can alter acquisition orders. B. Monitoring is limited by time constraints and knowledge. C. A main role for language teachers is to provide good input to learners. D. None of the above.
You see my short-term memory? I'd say A.
A. Is that right? Yes, it is. Steve would not agree with grammar instruction
Nice.
and alter acquisition.
Thanks for putting the right answers first. That really helps.
Wow. We'll see on this next one, okay? All right. You get this third one right, Lizette, and you win a prize. Right now, you got a tea bag. You didn't give you a tea bag. Okay? She's making eyes at Walter. Did you see that?
I did.
I've already
Blowing
said
kisses.
you do not get a date with Walter tonight. Okay, number 3. Fill in the blank based on what Steve Krashen has said. Blank cannot become acquisition. A. Practice. B. Learning. C. Output. D. None of the above.
Output.
Everybody?
Learning.
I'm sorry, Lizette. Even though he might agree with that in a certain sense, what he's actually said is learning cannot become acquisition.
Oh.
Learning in the sense of,
Can we do 3 out of 4?
But if you give Walter a kiss for extra credit, I will give you the prize. Okay, and here's Lizette's prize. Here's Lizette's prize. She gets a...
Yay, Lizette, thank you.
Steve wants to make a comment about that
Yes,
quiz.
I followed the advice that I gave Danielle a little while ago with the input hypothesis. I get credit for it, but because I coined the phrase, but it's of course not my idea. People had it first. I'm going to pretend to be modest. Frank Smith, Ken Goodman knew all about it in whole language. We learned to read by reading. And in the field of second language, people like James Asher, Harris Winnitz, Leonard Newmark knew about it before I did and talked about it. And I just attached a term to what they said.
Does anybody out there in the audience recognize any of these names that Steve just mentioned? Leonard Newmark, stuff? You do? That's because you read, right? Or read older. Because one of the, Sue Gass and I were talking about this one day at a meeting, and we said that because we're part of this older generation, and we've been around in second language acquisition for a long time. And we noticed the younger people getting their PhDs right now don't really know the history of the field. And they haven't read some of the great, they haven't even read Espit Corder's famous Significance of Learner's Errors, which I make all my students read. They have to read that in any course they have. They don't read Larry Salinger language. And so we need to make sure that these names and these constructs and these people stay alive because they're part of our history. SLA is only about 50, 60 years old, but it's rich with a lot of theorizing, and I'm going to say the following, that things that Espit Corder said, things that Larry Salinger said, and things that Steve Krashen said in the first days of SLA have not changed.
Right.
What we do now in SLA research and SLA thinking is pretty much a response to everything the 3 of them ever said. And so we owe the field to those 3 people. And so I just thought I'd say that.
Just to give a little more history, it turns out I went to my aunt and uncle's wedding anniversary, 50th anniversary. My uncle's name is Boris Newmark. and there was Leonard.
Get out of
We
here.
have the same aunt and uncle.
Get out of
Okay.
here.
Not only that, I was.
What are the odds?
Wait, it gets even more interesting. I was at Ken Goodman and Yetta Goodman's house a long time ago in Phoenix, and I stayed over at their house, and we were sitting around, and Ken asked Yetta, "Would you tell the story of your family history?" And she does it like Kunta Kinte. She does it in Yiddish, and she says who she is, and she says, "I'm Yetta, original name, maiden name, and my family comes from a little shtetl called Ledizhenker." And I said, "Say that again." By the way, her Yiddish was very comprehensible to me. Ledizhenker, that's where my father's family comes from. It's a tiny little shtetl of about, I'd say, 3,000 people. We're probably relatives. And the Goodmans and I are criticized in the same breath all the time. So both sides, both second language and literacy, we're all connected genetically and intellectually. It's amazing.
Next thing you know, I'm going to find out I'm related to Steve Krashen. I'm going to get a blood test. No, I thought you were going to tell us that you're related to Benny Goodman. That's where I thought the story was going. Pull out your clarinet. Let's see.
That's right.
Okay, we have a question on Twitter, right?
Yes,
Okay,
indeed.
let's hear the
Catherine
question.
is asking, why is there such a rift between input-focused language learning and teaching practices and the rest of the CLT world?
Ooh, why is there a rift? I didn't know there was a
This is a
rift.
good chance to do some definition of terms, which
Yeah.
is really important.
Yeah, you
when-
take that one first, and then I'll go after you.
Okay, there's a confusion. The term communicative is sometimes linked to stuff that we do. Oh, this is communicative. Natural approach, TPR, TPRS is all communicative. No, the word communicative technically means language teaching based on comprehensible output, trying to get your idea across, talking a lot, etc. It's actually the mirror image. Is trying to make yourself understood to people, which some people think is the way that we acquire language. So this is a very serious confusion.
Yeah, and actually, I have tried to undo that. The book that Jim and I did in 1995, and then the second edition came out in 2003, Making Communicative Language Teaching Happen, actually defines communication as the interpretation, expression, and negotiation of meaning in a given context, i.e., we're talking about classrooms, right? And what we put emphasis on is that there are two sides of communication, interpretation and expression. And a learner's job in the early stages is largely interpretation. So we're focusing on the role of input in the classroom in communicative language teaching, and not so much this idea of always trying to make learners speak right away. And so the problem that we have is that communicative language teaching has never had a good working definition of communication. So we've tried to put that in and show people how you can work with that to make sense of what it is that you're doing. So I think that the rift that who's the Catherine. I think the rift Catherine's talked about is precisely what Steve says, is that people hear communication and they think it means make the students talk. And Jim and I say, no, communication involves both interpretation and expression. So in the early stages, teachers are the expressors of most of the meaning, and students do a lot of interpreting. That's their job in language acquisition. So anyway, there you have it. Thank you, Catherine, for that question. Any other questions for now? How much time? I don't have a watch. Okay, Walter, my phone. I have to look at that.
17 minutes. We're
Oh, good.
good.
We got some good time.
Actually, on Twitter, Walter did a shout out for his voice too.
Oh my God! I keep
Very
telling him. I
white.
keep telling him.